Blink-182 is probably the most beloved band amongst millennials, second only to Green Day. Their irreverent humor mixed with moments of genuine introspection, classic punk rock influences, the dueling vocals of Tom DeLonge and Mark Hoppus, and the absolute god-tier drumming of Travis Barker made them one of the most well-known bands in the entire world. It's hard to find a band that truly compares. But sometimes, I don't want to listen to Blink-182. There's only so many dick jokes I can take. Sometimes I want to broaden my horizons, while still staying in my comfort zone. So what do I do when I want to listen to a band that's kind of like Blink, but not exactly? I have an idea.
Some people should mind their own business.
Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'm Trevor and I am eternally uncool. I make videos about music, music culture, and anything that interests me. But mostly music right now. So if that sounds like something you'd be into, then I highly recommend subscribing to the channel and watching the rest of this video. Blink-182's influence cannot be understated. Like I said, they're second only to Green Day. Not only have they inspired pop-punk bands like All Time Low and Fall Out Boy, but also surprisingly more mainstream acts like Mumford & Sons and Lil Peep. A lot of bands have tried to replicate what Blink has, but none were ever able to meet the same standards as the California Trio. It takes more than fart jokes, nasally singing, and slightly intense drumming to make something even slightly similar to Blink-182. But I found a few that have come pretty damn close. What I've done today is I've compiled a few bands that I think any Blink fan would be more than happy to listen to when they're not in the mood for the real thing. And just a heads up, I'm not going to include any Blink side projects in here, so don't expect Plus 44 or Angels and Airwaves. I'm also not going to include the obvious picks like MGK. You fucking suck! But with all that being said, grab a drink, grab a snack, get comfortable, and let's get into the video. I have to give new pop-punk bands some credit. They're always pushing the genre in a fresh, new direction, giving it a more eclectic feel, mixing it with other newer genres. But something has to be said for the bands that can pull off a nostalgic vibe and sound. That's where the Paradox comes in. Why you gotta do me like that? Gotta do me so bad. The Paradox are probably the newest band on this list. Having formed in June of 2024, they made absolute waves online earlier this year with their classic pop-punk sound. They immediately caught the attention of Green Day, who they opened for at their show at Truist Park in Atlanta, Georgia, the Paradox's hometown. This performance caught the attention of Jack White, who DM'd the band and asked them to open for him in Nashville. After that, the band just started racking up followers on social media like crazy, gaining a huge following, including some heavyweights within the pop-punk and emo scene. They even got a chance to perform at the 2024 When We Were Young Fest. My older brother was actually the person to introduce me to this band. I don't know how he found them, but he did. Which is funny, he's kind of more of a hardcore guy and I'm kind of the pop-punk guy, so I could immediately see why pop-punk fans were so into them. They definitely have that classic 90s, 2000s pop-punk sound. They have the catchiness of Blink in their prime, as well as the fact that they don't take themselves too seriously. They're just fun. They're also one of the few modern pop-punk bands that incorporate dual vocals the same way Blink-182 does. Eric Dangerfield and Chris Bernard work really well off of each other, and drummer PC3 goes absolutely nuts on the drums. You can tell he takes a lot of influence from Travis Barker. The Paradox are definitely a band to keep an eye on. They show a lot of promise and potential. And they're perfect for anyone who's a fan of Blink-182's sound and lyricism. Just good, fun pop punk with a lot of energy. Pop punk would definitely be different without the influence of Blink-182.
You said it best, brother.
But one of the bands I always think about when I think about Blink-182's influence and legacy within pop punk as a genre is another highly influential pop punk band, Man Overboard. Man Overboard is simultaneously one of the most influential and most underrated pop punk bands of the early 2010s. I'd say they're more well known for their Defend pop punk shirt these days than for their actual music, but I absolutely loved this band in high school. I heard songs like Dead End Dreams and Montrose, and my life was absolutely changed.
And I've got nothing to show for these dead end dreams. My heart will ache again, it seems.
Not only is Man Overboard named after a Blink-182 song, but they also share some undeniable similarities. Both bands incorporate two vocalists who have drastically different styles. Man Overboard singers Zach Eisenstein and Nick Bruzies definitely have a similar, relationship to Tom and Mark. Zach having the more higher-pitched, almost nasally voice of Tom, and Nick having the more baritone of Mark.
Walking on the grass and I've never seen this town. My head is feeling heavy and it's pointing straight down. Remember when I left and you said that you'll miss me forever?
Both Man Overboard and Blink also share similar lyrical themes. Adolescent feelings, emotions, stuff like that. Man Overboard is a little bit more mature in their lyrics than Blink.
But the vibe is still there.
I think most pop punk bands from the late 2000s, early 2010s definitely have at least a little bit of a Blink-182 influence. And Man Overboard fits that mold pretty well. If you enjoy 2010s pop punk that's fun and also just genuinely good, definitely check out Man Overboard. The first two bands I talked about definitely have a Blink vibe, but more of a 2000s Blink vibe. The Paradox and Man Overboard are definitely within Take Off Your Pants and Jacket and Untitled territory. But Blink wasn't always bubblegum pop punk. They used to have a much more traditional skate punk sound with albums like Cheshire Cat and Buddha.
Are there any modern bands that can capture that sound?
As a matter of fact, there is.
Every time I think about you, I can't sound all the things we're never got to do.
No Pressure is a side project of The Story So Far's Parker Cannon. While The Story So Far plays your typical 2010s easycore mixed with pop punk, No Pressure feels like they would fit more in with the late 90s, early 2000s skate hardcore scene. It's definitely more classic pop punk sounding than The Story So Far. When I was looking for bands that sounded like Blink-182, I saw a lot of people recommend No Pressure. And I was somewhat familiar with them. I'd listened to them before, not that much, but a little bit. But I never really got a Blink vibe from them when I first initially listened to them. But as I started taking the recommendations a lot more seriously, I started noticing the similarities between No Pressure and Blink-182. Or at least Blink's more skate punk roots. So if you enjoy Blink's more early skate punk stuff as opposed to their more poppy, pop punk, modern work, No Pressure might be for you. Usually when I make these bands similar to Blank band videos, I usually have at least one band on the list that I had never heard of and know absolutely nothing about. I'm just going off of what people on Reddit have recommended. And that's how I found our next entry, Dead Bundy.
I'm so sorry, I'm not sorry. Walk away in the game and you play me just for...
Dead Bundy are a pop punk band from Cleveland, Ohio. I think they formed in 2023, but I'm not really sure. couldn't find much useful information on them, so. But from what I've heard, they definitely have a classic 2000s pop punk sound. Imagine if Blink-182 and Sum 41 had a baby. That's Dead Bundy. I didn't know who Dead Bundy was before making this video, but I think I might be a fan now. They definitely have a Blink vibe, but they're just a straight up good pop punk band, like just in general, even without the comparison. Definitely check them out if you are a devoted fan of pop punk like myself. What do you think of my picks? Do you have any bands that you would recommend to a Blink-182 fan? Let me know in the comments. That's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then I highly recommend smashing that like button and sharing this video with everyone you know. I'm a small, independent content creator who does everything on his own, and I'm really trying to grow this channel. So every like, every comment, every share, any interaction with this video at all really helps me out a lot. I'm also trying to grow my Instagram, so if you want to follow me there, you can. With all that being said, thank you for watching. As always, I'm Trevor. Stay uncool. And that's the end of the video. Goodbye.